Giraffe, conservation efforts and controlled hunting, they stand tall like ancient towers across the African savanna, calm and majestic. But behind their peaceful eyes is a silent struggle for survival. The giraffe, once a symbol of Africa's endless wilderness, is vanishing. Yet, in a twist that shocks many, the very act of hunting may be their last hope. What if the key to saving them is letting them be hunted? Across the sweeping plains of Africa, the giraffe moves with quiet elegance. But this graceful creature is now facing threats greater than ever before. Habitat loss, poaching, and human expansion are driving its numbers down. According to the IUCN, some giraffe populations have plummeted by nearly 40% in the last 3 decades. Conservationists have raised alarm bells, calling this a silent extinction. Most people don't even realize giraffes are in danger. They still see them in documentaries, zoos, and tourist photos, but the truth is more dire. In countries like Niger, Chad, and Kenya, specific subspecies like the West African giraffe and the Nubian giraffe are now critically endangered. Local communities often struggle to protect them due to lack of resources, infrastructure, or incentives. This is where a controversial method comes into the spotlight: conservation through regulated hunting. At first glance, the idea feels contradictory. How could killing these magnificent animals help them survive? But the answer lies in strategy and funding. In some African nations, governments allow a limited number of older or non-breeding giraffes to be hunted legally. These permits are sold at a high price, often tens of thousands of dollars, and the revenue is redirected into conservation programs. These programs include anti-poaching patrols, protected reserves, veterinary care, and education for local communities. In countries like Namibia and South Africa, this model has shown results. The giraffe population in these regions has stabilized or even grown. By giving wildlife an economic value, these governments have turned giraffes into valuable assets worth protecting. Locals are more motivated to prevent illegal hunting and protect habitats when they see financial benefit tied to keeping giraffes alive. But this model isn't without backlash. Animal rights groups argue that no animal, especially one at risk, should ever be killed for money or sport. Critics say the message it sends is dangerous, that it's acceptable to kill rare species as long as you pay. They warn that corruption, poor enforcement, or data manipulation can turn regulated hunting into unregulated slaughter. The line between ethical conservation and exploitation can become blurry fast. The emotional response is powerful. Seeing photos of hunters posing beside fallen giraffes sparks outrage across the globe. Yet, conservationists point out that while outrage is emotional, extinction is final. And without major funding, many programs would collapse. In a world where conservation competes with war, poverty, and political instability, the harsh truth is this: ideals alone don't fund protection. Money does. Tourism is often seen as the alternative. If people visit to photograph giraffes instead of hunt them, that could generate income too. But not all regions are stable or attractive to tourists. In parts of Sudan or the Central African Republic, tourism is nearly impossible. Hunting, in contrast, attracts a different kind of visitor, one willing to travel far, pay more, and operate in tougher environments. And some argue that one wealthy hunter who pays $50,000 for a single giraffe hunt can fund anti-poaching teams for an entire year. If done ethically and scientifically, that single loss could save dozens of others. The debate rages on. It's a collision of values, emotional versus practical, ethical versus economic, local need versus global outrage. At the heart of it all stands the giraffe, silent and unaware of the controversy surrounding it. For some, The image of a giraffe standing tall in golden light is a symbol of nature's wonder. For others, it is a grim reminder of how complicated conservation can be. But the most powerful question still remains: do we value these creatures enough to protect them, even if that means embracing uncomfortable solutions? In the end, conservation is not about choosing what feels right. It's about choosing what works. And in the case of the giraffe, sometimes the most unlikely strategies offer the only path to survival. The world may not agree on how to save them, but if we do nothing, we know what comes next: silence, stillness, and a world without giraffes. If this shocked you, or made you rethink what it means to protect wildlife, share this video with someone who needs to see it. Your awareness might be the very thing that keeps these giants alive. Feral HOG ground pursuits and the fight on foot, they move like shadows through fields and forests. Powerful, relentless, and silent until it's too late. Feral hogs have become one of the most dangerous and destructive invasive species in the world. And while helicopters buzz overhead, a different battle unfolds at ground level, where hunters face these beasts on foot with courage, skill, and often desperation. Ground hunting feral hogs is not just a method, it's a war waged step by step, acre by acre. These animals aren't just pests. They are survivors. They adapt quickly, breed even faster, and vanish into terrain that's hard to reach. That's why many regions rely on traditional boots-on-the-ground hunting as the frontline defense. With dogs trained for tracking, rifles in hand, and senses razor-sharp, hunters push into dense underbrush, muddy wetlands, and thick forests. The goal isn't sport, it's control. Every hog removed means crops protected, diseases prevented, and ecosystems one step closer to balance. But ground hunting is risky. Feral hogs are stronger and smarter than most people realize. Weighing over 200 pounds with sharp tusks and raw aggression, they can charge without warning. Unlike deer or rabbits, these animals fight back. Stories from the field are filled with narrow escapes, slashed legs, overturned ATVs, and injured dogs. Hunters wear armor-like vests for their dogs and move in teams, never alone. It's not uncommon for a wounded hog to lure hunters in, only to turn and ambush them. The intensity is real. Adrenaline, danger, and the knowledge that a mistake could cost you blood. What makes them so hard to stop? It starts with their intelligence. Feral hogs are clever. They learn fast. If they detect hunters in one area, they'll vanish from it for weeks. They travel in sounders, family groups that communicate with grunts, squeals, and silent cues. Some hogs become trap smart, avoiding bait and recognizing human scent. Others break through fences or dig under barriers with shocking speed. Ground hunters must constantly evolve their tactics. Day hunts, night stalks, ambush setups, nothing stays effective for long. Some even use thermal scopes to detect body heat in the dark. But even with tech, every successful hunt demands skill and patience. And still, the problem grows. In Texas alone, an estimated 2.6 million feral hogs roam wild. They destroy $500 million worth of property and crops each year. They dig up farmlands, pollute water sources, and compete with native species for food. Ground hunters, often volunteers or ranchers themselves, carry a heavy burden. There's no off-season. These animals breed year-round. Sows can produce 2 litters a year with 6 or more piglets each. That's why many hunters say, if you're not removing dozens, you're losing. Communities often organize night hunts where teams patrol with spotlights and night vision. Others use baiting strategies or call-and-response devices that mimic piglet distress sounds to lure adults in. Dogs play a key role too. Bay dogs locate and corner the hog, while catch dogs hold it in place until the hunter arrives. It's fast, brutal, and dangerous. Every movement matters. Every second counts. For many rural families, ground hunting isn't just a tool, it's tradition, duty, and the only thing standing between their land and total devastation. But it's not without controversy. Some animal rights advocates argue that certain dog-based hunting methods are cruel. Others worry about safety risks or accidental injuries. Yet for those living with the daily damage feral hogs cause, the arguments feel distant. They see the torn fences, the dead livestock, the ruined fields. They hear the growls in the night. And they know no law or policy will arrive faster than their own boots. Ground pursuit is gritty, relentless, and deeply personal. It connects hunter and land, prey and predator in a battle as old as survival itself. It demands everything: endurance, precision, and respect. These aren't weekend warriors. They're guardians of the field, protecting what's left before the wild swallows it whole. If you've never seen the impact of a feral hog invasion, it's hard to understand the urgency. But on the ground, where the dirt kicks up and the chase is real, the truth is simple. This is a fight that never ends. Feral HOG aerial assault. Hunting from the sky from above, the landscape looks quiet, peaceful. But hidden in that stillness is a destructive force ripping through farms, forests, and fields. Feral hogs, fast, ruthless, and multiplying at an unstoppable pace. On the ground, they're nearly impossible to contain. But in the sky, the battle changes. Welcome to helicopter hunting, one of the most aggressive, controversial, and effective tactics in the war against wild hogs. Flying low over open land, the roar of the rotors drowns out everything but focus. Marksmen lean out, scanning the terrain. Below, feral hogs scatter, running in chaotic directions. But it's already too late. Helicopter crews are trained for this: rapid spotting, tracking, and precise elimination. This isn't hunting for sport. It's extermination. With a mission. Aerial hog control is used when ground efforts fail and the damage becomes too severe. Crops destroyed. Soil overturned. Water sources contaminated. Helicopter hunts offer speed and scale, something no other method can match. But how does it work? First, landowners give permission. Then trained pilots and shooters, often ex-military or highly experienced hunters, coordinate flight paths. Communication is key. Pilots fly low and slow, matching the speed of fleeing hogs. Shooters use semi-automatic rifles fitted with red dot optics for quick targeting. It's a dangerous dance. The helicopter moves unpredictably, weaving through trees and over hills. Every shot must be calculated. Every move controlled. There's no margin for error. The results? Staggering. A single helicopter hunt can eliminate hundreds of feral hogs in just a few hours. Some Texas counties have removed thousands this way. And with an estimated 6 million feral hogs causing billions in damages across the U.S., the need is urgent. Helicopter hunting is fast, effective, and brutally efficient. For farmers whose fields are devastated overnight, it's not just a solution, it's salvation. But like every aggressive method, it sparks debate. Animal rights groups argue that aerial hunting is inhumane. Some claim it causes unnecessary suffering or leads to inaccurate shots. Supporters counter with data, pointing to the sheer destruction hogs leave behind. They remind critics that feral hogs aren't native. They threaten ecosystems, endanger native wildlife, and spread diseases like swine brucellosis and pseudorabies. In this war, time is the enemy. And aerial response is the only way to stay ahead. There's also the question of cost. Helicopter hunts are expensive. They require fuel, skilled personnel, and logistical coordination. Some states offer subsidies or organize coordinated efforts with wildlife agencies. In Texas, entire companies specialize in hog eradication flights. Others offer thrill seekers a chance to join for a fee, turning pest control into an adrenaline-fueled experience. But for serious control, professionals take the lead. These aren't just flyovers. They're tactical missions guided by GPS data, tracking reports, and years of field knowledge. Safety is always a concern. Crews undergo intense training. From helicopter aerodynamics to ballistic safety, nothing is left to chance. Ground teams are often on standby, helping retrieve carcasses or verifying areas have been cleared. Many operations also use thermal imaging to locate hogs hidden in brush or shade. It's a high-tech, high-risk, high-reward operation, one that few people see up close. And yet, despite all this firepower, the problem persists. Feral hogs breed faster than most species on the planet. A single female can birth 2 litters per year, with 6 to 12 piglets each time. Ground efforts, trapping, and fencing help, but often fall short. Aerial hunting provides the scale necessary to keep up. Without it, entire regions would fall under the pressure of wild hog invasions. Helicopter hunting is not glamorous. It's not easy, but in many parts of the world, it's the last line of defense. The sky becomes the hunter's perch, the wind their ally. And every flight is a race against time, destruction, and the rising tide of an invasion few truly understand. In the fight against feral hogs, there are no perfect solutions, only bold ones. And from 500 feet above, bold is the only option left. Feral hog, urban invasion. When the wild enters the city, it starts with a sound in the night, a crash, a rustle, then silence. But by morning, the evidence is clear: torn gardens, shattered fences, deep gouges in lawns, and hoof prints. Not from deer or cattle, but from something wilder. Feral hogs. Once creatures of dense forests and open plains, they're now invading suburbs, city parks, even schoolyards. The wild has crossed the line, and no one saw it coming. In cities across America, wild hogs are no longer strangers. They roam neighborhoods, in packs, sometimes dozens strong. Silent at night, bold during dawn, they root up everything in their path. Landscaped yards become muddy ruins. Golf courses look like battlegrounds. Cars are damaged. Pet food is stolen. Residents wake up wondering how such destruction could happen while they slept. Surveillance videos go viral, entire sounders trotting down quiet streets as if they belong there. And in a way, they do, because the line between wild and urban is disappearing fast. This isn't a rare event. Cities in Texas, Florida, California, and even northern states are reporting record numbers of urban hog encounters. They're drawn by overflowing trash bins, pet food, compost piles, and gardens. Once they find food, they return. Again and again. Hogs are smart, highly adaptable, and completely unafraid of human environments. They learn quickly which neighborhoods offer easy meals and safe escape routes. They memorize fence layouts, avoid traffic, and time their movements to dodge people. It's a terrifying level of intelligence, and it's what makes them so hard to stop. The damage they cause is staggering. A single night visit can cost homeowners thousands. Replacing torn turf, fixing irrigation lines, cleaning up contaminated water sources. In some neighborhoods, insurance companies refuse to cover repeated damage from hogs, labeling it a recurring act of nature. Homeowners associations send alerts. Local news stations warn residents to keep pets indoors. The city starts to feel like a war zone, not against crime, but against animals that aren't supposed to be there. And then comes the danger. Feral hogs aren't just destructive, they're aggressive. Corner a sow with piglets and she'd charge. Threaten. A dominant boar and it won't back down. They've injured dogs, attacked joggers, and even confronted law enforcement. In one shocking case, a woman in Texas was killed near her home, the victim of a sudden violent hog attack. These aren't stories from deep wilderness. They're headlines from residential streets. The threat is real. And growing cities are scrambling to respond. Some hire professional trappers. Others deploy bait and trap cages in greenbelt zones or parklands. But results are mixed. Hogs are clever. If one gets caught, the rest learn and avoid the trap. Some cities have experimented with sterilization techniques, chemical baits designed to reduce reproduction. But nothing scales fast enough to match the speed at which hogs multiply. They breed year-round. And one sounder can balloon into dozens in just months. Law enforcement faces a dilemma. Discharging firearms in urban areas is illegal or dangerous. Yet tranquilizers are often ineffective due to the hog's thick skin and muscle mass. Helicopter hunting isn't possible in cities, and trapping alone is a slow process. Cities are built for people. But now, they're being reshaped by animals with no respect for property lines, fences, or curfews. Residents are adapting in strange ways. Motion sensor lights now serve to scare off hogs. Some communities install reinforced fencing with underground barriers. Others share real-time sightings in neighborhood apps, alerting one another like a modern-day watchtower system. But even with precautions, hogs keep coming. And each night brings a new story, a new scar, a new reminder that nature doesn't stay in the wild forever. Why is this happening now? Experts say it's a perfect storm. Urban sprawl cuts into natural habitat. Climate shifts drive animals toward easier food. And human carelessness, trash left outside, pet food in open bowls, creates a banquet. Once hogs find it, they remember. And once they arrive, they're nearly impossible to drive out. The urban invasion isn't just a nuisance. It's a warning. A sign that something is shifting, that wild boundaries are breaking. That even in our safest spaces, nature still holds power. Feral hogs aren't just pests. They're a force, relentless, clever, unstoppable. And now they're your neighbors. Feral hog, personal stories, faces of the invasion you never forget the first time. The noise outside. The sudden movement in the dark. And then the realization it wasn't a stray dog or a raccoon. It was a wild hog. And it was just the beginning. Across America, people from all walks of life are telling the same chilling story. Their quiet nights shattered. Their land destroyed. Their safety questioned. These aren't news reports or statistics. These are lived moments. And they reveal a frightening truth. The feral hog crisis is not just out there. It's here. In our homes. In our lives. Take farmer Greg Wilson in Central Texas. For decades, he ran a peaceful cattle ranch, until the hogs came. First a few, then hundreds. They tore through his pastures, destroyed his feed stores, dug deep trenches that broke his tractors. Axel, they come at night, he says. By morning, it looks like a bomb went off. He tried everything, fences, traps, even motion alarms. Nothing worked. Within a year, he'd lost over $50,000 in damages. But worse than the loss was the feeling that he was no longer in control of his own land. Then there's Alicia Monroe, a single mother living in the suburbs outside Orlando. One evening, as her kids played in the backyard, a large sow and 3 piglets burst through the bushes. The kids ran screaming. The sow didn't chase, but it didn't leave either. It stared, unblinking, as Alicia rushed her children inside. It wasn't afraid of us, she says. It knew it belonged there. Now every night, she walks the fence with a flashlight. Her children no longer play outside after sunset. Her home feels less like a haven and more like a battleground. In Louisiana, Hunter Terry Brody has a different tale. A seasoned outdoorsman, he once viewed hogs as nothing more than another hunt. But that changed when he stumbled upon a mutilated deer carcass deep in the woods, torn apart not by coyotes, but by a group of feral hogs. They're scavengers, yes, he says, but they're also predators when desperate. He recalls one hunt where a wounded hog turned on him, charging with horrifying speed. I had to climb a tree, he says, still shaking. If I hadn't, I don't think I'd be here today. Elderly couples in Georgia have had their gardens uprooted, their pets attacked. Children in Arkansas schools have been kept indoors after hog sightings near playgrounds. In Northern California, cyclists on mountain trails report ambushes, sudden violent encounters with territorial boars. Every story is different, but the emotion is the same: fear, frustration, and the unshakable sense that something wild is slipping past the barriers we thought would always protect us. Some communities fight back. In rural Oklahoma, neighbors have formed nighttime patrols, armed and alert. They track hog movements, share radio updates, and even bait traps together. It's brought people closer, but also driven home the reality that they're in a daily battle with a species that doesn't sleep, doesn't stop, and doesn't fear humans. We're living in the Wild West again, says one resident. But the enemy isn't human. It's something far more unpredictable. And then there are those who never saw it coming, like Mark and Jenna Thompson, a retired couple who moved to the Texas Hill Country for peace. One morning, they found their beloved golden retriever missing. Hours later, they discovered his collar near a wallow, surrounded by hog tracks. No blood, no body, just silence. We never thought something like this could happen here, Jenna says, tears welling. This was supposed to be safe. Behind every headline, there are faces, voices, families, people who once thought they were immune to nature's chaos. But feral hogs don't care about fences, wealth, or geography. They go where the food is, where the ground is soft, where no one expects them. And they leave behind more than damage. They leave trauma. These stories aren't meant to sensationalize. They're meant to humanize, to remind us that this isn't a distant issue affecting someone else. The feral hog crisis is personal. It strikes randomly, relentlessly, and often without warning. And the scars, both physical and emotional, are real. As the population continues to explode, more voices will join this chorus. More quiet nights will be broken. More memories will turn to fear. But in sharing these stories, in naming the danger, perhaps we can reclaim a little control, a little understanding, and a lot more urgency. Because the invasion isn't slowing, and the wild doesn't knock before entering. Bobcat population, conflict, and control measures, they're silent, stealthy, and nearly invisible in the wild. But don't be fooled by their size. Bobcats are apex hunters, muscular, precise, and incredibly elusive. And across North America, their numbers are growing fast. With an estimated population between 2.3 and 3.5 million, bobcats are no longer rare sightings. They're moving closer to farms, creeping into suburbs, and changing the delicate balance between predator and prey. So how do we live with a hunter that refuses to stay hidden? And how far should humans go to take back control? From the snowy forests of Canada to the deserts of the Southwest, the bobcat has made itself at home. It thrives where other predators fail. Its mottled coat blends into almost any terrain, and its solitary nature keeps it away from conflict. Until food becomes scarce. Then it moves, fast, Chickens, goats, lambs all become targets. Farmers wake up to torn fencing, feathers scattered in the dirt, and the lingering fear of another silent strike. Because when a bobcat finds easy prey, it doesn't stop at one kill. It returns. Bobcats are incredibly intelligent. They learn fast. They avoid roads, move at night, and rarely fall for the same trap twice. That's why managing them is difficult. Traditional methods like fencing often fail. They're agile climbers and can leap up to 12 feet in a single bound. Once inside, they hunt with brutal precision. And if they get a taste for livestock, they can become repeat offenders, striking again and again until they're stopped. Hunters and wildlife. Managers have turned to more advanced strategies. One common method is trapping, using padded leg hold traps designed to minimize injury while securing the animal for relocation or removal. But success isn't guaranteed. Setting a trap takes skill, patience, and knowledge of bobcat behavior. Even the scent of human hands on a trap can be enough to scare them away. Experienced trappers wear gloves, use scent blockers, and choose locations carefully. They look for signs, tracks, droppings, tufts of fur caught on barbed wire, calling. Techniques have also gained popularity. By mimicking the sounds of injured prey, like rabbits or birds, hunters can lure bobcats out of hiding. But even this requires precision. Too much volume, and the bobcat stays away. Too little, and it never hears you. The best callers blend natural sounds with complete stillness. It's a test of patience. Sometimes they wait hours for a glimpse of movement, and when it happens, it's sudden. The bobcat doesn't creep in, it appears. And the hunter has just seconds to react. But not all states treat bobcats the same way. In some regions, hunting seasons are short and tightly regulated. In others, the laws are looser, allowing year-round control. Conservationists argue that despite their rising numbers, bobcats play an important ecological role, keeping rodent and rabbit populations in check. Overhunting, they warn, could disrupt entire ecosystems. And so, a debate rages between preservation and protection. How do you defend livestock without damaging nature's balance? Some states have implemented permit systems, allowing landowners to remove nuisance bobcats under strict guidelines. Others offer training programs that teach ethical trapping, relocation techniques, and population monitoring. Still, illegal hunting remains a threat. Bobcat pelts fetch high prices on the black market, and demand from international fur trades continues to fuel poaching. Law enforcement has ramped up patrols and surveillance, but with vast wildlands and limited resources, many violations go unnoticed. Then there's the growing urban factor. As cities expand into wild areas, bobcats are seen more often near neighborhoods, golf courses, and schoolyards. They don't usually attack humans, but small pets are a different story. Cats vanish, small dogs are taken, and fear spreads. Sightings trigger community alerts. Some call for lethal action. Others plead for coexistence. And in the middle stand wildlife officers, balancing safety with science, trying to decide when removal is necessary and when it's just fear-talking. Education has proven powerful. In areas with high bobcat activity, officials distribute guides on protecting pets, securing garbage, and avoiding confrontation. Homeowners learn to install motion lights, remove brush piles, and bring animals indoors at night. These simple steps often make the difference between peaceful coexistence and constant conflict. But not everyone listens, and the results can be tragic. Still, bobcats remain an awe-inspiring part of the American wilderness. Their presence reminds us that the wild isn't gone, it's just moved closer. They're survivors, adapting to a world reshaped by humans. And while their growing numbers bring new challenges, They also bring an opportunity to rethink how we live alongside predators instead of against them. Because the story of the bobcat is far from over. And as long as forests grow and fields stretch wide, the silent hunter will roam, watching, waiting, surviving. Bobcats' hunting tactics and ethical questions hunting bobcats is not as simple as following tracks. It's a test of instinct, patience, and deep understanding of the land. Each hunt plays out like a quiet chess match between human and predator. One wrong step, one shift in the wind, and the bobcat vanishes like smoke. Hunters who chase these elusive creatures know it takes more than a weapon to win. It takes wisdom. But in this pursuit, one question never fades. When does hunting shift from survival to sport? And how far is too far? The success of a bobcat hunt depends on the hunter's ability to read terrain, interpret signs, and react to the subtle patterns of nature. They check wind direction, track weather shifts, and choose locations based on recent sightings or game. Camera footage. Many rely on camouflaged clothing and scent blockers to blend into the environment. Still, even the most experienced often return empty-handed, because bobcats don't linger. They move silently, observe from cover, and strike. Only when the odds are in their favor, but some do succeed. And as bobcat sightings increased in recent years, more hunters took to the field. According to the U.S. Wildlife Management Agency, the bobcat population was estimated around 2.8 million in 2020. These rising numbers stirred concern among livestock owners and sparked aggressive control measures. By 2024, coordinated hunting efforts and tighter management brought the number down to roughly 1.2 million. Supporters of these efforts argue it was necessary, a step taken to protect both agriculture and the balance of prey species. However, this drop hasn't gone without controversy. Conservationists warn that aggressive hunting could swing the pendulum too far. Bobcats play a critical role in regulating populations of rabbits, rodents, and other small mammals. Remove too many, and these prey species explode in number, damaging crops and reshaping ecosystems. Ethical hunters agree that balance matters, but debates flare over what that balance should look like. Should quotas be stricter? Should non-lethal methods take priority? Or has the scale already tipped too far? The ethics of bobcat hunting lie in the gray space between population control and personal gain. Trophy hunters, for example, are often criticized for chasing bobcats purely for their pelts or photographs. The value of a bobcat pelt on the international market has remained high, and that demand can tempt even regulated hunters to bend the rules. While legal trapping and hunting seasons exist, illegal poaching still occurs, especially in isolated wilderness where oversight is limited. On the other hand, some hunters argue that bobcat management is no different from deer or coyote control. They follow strict guidelines, report their kills, and help stabilize populations where natural predators are missing. To them, it's not just a sport, it's a responsibility. They learn calling techniques, track migration patterns, and spend hours studying the habits of a single animal before making a move. For them, success isn't about pulling the trigger, it's about the connection to the wild, yet the emotional impact of hunting remains real. In one widely shared story, a bobcat was found injured near a construction site, its leg caught in discarded wire. Instead of being hunted, it was rescued. Wildlife rehabilitators worked tirelessly to save the animal. It had a fractured paw and deep wounds, but it survived. Months later, that same bobcat was released back into the forest, stronger, wilder, and free. The video of its release went viral, igniting public support for protection over removal. It reminded many that these animals aren't villains. They're survivors. That rescue reignited debates around non-lethal options. Some advocates now push for relocation programs using tranquilizers and GPS collars to track bobcats and move them away from human settlements. Others call for habitat preservation, ensuring bobcats have enough wild territory to roam without coming into conflict with people. But these solutions require time, funding, and commitment. And not every region has the resources or public support to implement them. Meanwhile, local governments face rising pressure to act. In areas with increased pet attacks or livestock loss, residents demand results. City councils and rural boards debate options, from expanding hunting seasons to investing in better fencing and education campaigns. The decisions they make shape not just policy, but the future of coexistence between humans and bobcats. Question isn't whether bobcats should be managed, it's how. Can we find a path that respects the predator without sacrificing safety? Can we teach communities to live with the wild instead of trying to erase it? These questions won't be answered overnight. But each choice, each regulation, each encounter with a pair of glowing eyes in the dark, they all shape the story of our relationship with one of North America's most mysterious hunters. Because the bobcat doesn't just haunt the wild. It haunts our conscience. And the way we treat it, with respect, caution, or cruelty, says more about us than it does about the animal itself.